Hello, man. Hello, man. Tell me how my sound is if you can, and go your own way. Go your own way, Mgtow. Do it. Do it how you want to do it. And today we're going to talk about. I can go over here. Hello, man. Well, seems like we're having problems with buffering, but having problems with buffer. Okay, but the sound seems okay, and that's okay. Today we're going to talk a little bit about existential flight. But before we get into it, we'll kind of go over things where we are in our process and where I am in my process. First, when we come into Mgtow, they start talking about this thing where men experience they retreat into a Disney world. Fantasy fiction, Disney. You're looking for that perfect Noel. She's beautiful. She's up on that pedestal. She's she's out there running around in the woods, and you just can't find her. And that's the one thing that's going to cure all your existential angst. And that's what we're talking about today. We're going to talk a little more about existential angst, and we're going to introduce you to a new term, existential flight. And so we know this concept. We know this concept, and we can believe in this concept, but we can't really pin it down. And we have to, for our detractors, give them some more philosophy, or some like good reasons why they should believe us in this thing. And so I go into Adler. Sorry about that. Adler calls it final fictionalism, where men retreat in this final fictionalism place in their head, and then they take that onto the life, and they try to live in that the rest of their lives. It's part of the core human conditions, I guess. And we talked about Adler and how they do it, and then I'm working you up, and I'm working you up here, and then we're going to talk about another. I usually like to give 3 examples, and it's always good as a philosopher to give 3 examples of what you're talking about. So we give the Mgtow philosophy of this, and in better words, it's called final fictionalism, what they do, or it's called existential flight. And existential flight is kind of interesting. It comes from a Buddhist author. He does a lot of Buddhism, but he does a lot of philosophy. It's Stephen Batchelor. You may know him, you may not. And postmodernism and all that. I want to say hello. Okay, hey Wookie, hey Pockets, hey everybody that's coming around or don't come around. I don't get much during these times. I don't get much concept, but we can't. I don't get much push by YouTube, so I can't expect much people to come around or see, and I don't get put out there. Hello, Mr. Jones. Hello, everybody. So it's Friday night, and we're going to talk a little more about the blue pill guys. And yes, Pockets, I've seen that new video that our friend Mgtow, he was going off about, giving a lot of thought into what he was doing. He's brand new in Mgtow, and he's given a lot of thought about what he's doing, and it's just funny. You know what he's like? I noticed it today. Bitcoin Mgtow guy, and with the lovely girlfriend that he's like Mrs. and Mr. Mgtow. He might even be Mrs. and Mr. Mgtow. That's a possibility. That's delicious. Roasted some coffee up, and the other day I thought I didn't have no coffee left, and I went out and I ordered coffee, and I got lazy, so I just ordered some Starbucks, and I ordered some other bags, and then I looked up in my cabinet, and up in my cabinet was a whole big bag of Nicaraguan, so I roasted some up and yesterday, and it's pretty delicious and everything. And I found some raw sugar. I bought a bag of that. It was quite expensive, running out of everything up at the grocery store, and that's giving me a little existential angst. But like most people, I can't retreat into myself, and I can't retreat into the condition where I don't believe in real things to make this thing go away. So I just have to live it. Well, what we do with with existential flight is we absorb the world around us and the entities of particular characteristics of wealth. And you can see with the picket fence analogy that there's wealth involved with that, and the good life and wealth and the most perfect girl and everything. And we find ourselves in this realm of where the weight of anxiety no longer is felt by us, and it's an effective way of providing a sense of security or quality in our lives. From the phenomena, that we in this phenomena we manipulate all the entities around us, and we manipulate whatever we see and whatever we can to the limits of ourselves. And in this thing, we're seeing things very much like the last two, like finalized fictionalism, and then we're seeing the Disney world, and we're seeing all that. And there's what Dostoevsky says, we looking over the street, and we're seeing that beautiful house and that beautiful wife and that beautiful car and that beautiful picket fence, and we wonder what it's like to be inside of there. And for most of us, being inside of there would be more horrible than being outside on the street. But we imagine these things and we fictionalize these things, but it's a better place to live, and it really is. Fantasy fiction land causes us to lose sight of what we really are. And we talk about this in Mgtow. We flee from their existential angst. We lose sight of who we are, and we flee into this fantasy fiction place where it's not real. And most of us have done that in our early 20s, and because there was a lot of pressure, and there was pressure to work, and we have no experience with these pressures that the life was going to throw on us. And it was some of us take it. I take it. I moved right from the Army till right at 17 years old, so there wasn't a lot of surprise in life. But when I did get out in this world, and I stepped off that bus, and there was no more horrifying moment than being an adult stepping off the bus back in your hometown, and there's nothing, and it's all up to you, and you got to find a job, you got to find a house, you got to find a place to live, you got to find a place to work, you got to do all that real quick, or else you're going to be screwed, because what money you have in the pocket is all that, and the Army back then didn't pay all that much, let me tell you. And there's some existential angst that's going to come on, and you just start working as hard as you can. You work for all these things, and you get these big dreams, and along with those big dreams, those grandiose dreams, they go hand in hand with the anxiety that you're feeling. It confronts it confronts these entities that are thrown at you, these things where you're merely manipulating the world around you with force and strength. And we go on for a while like that, and we just imagine this beautiful, like I said, the beautiful wife, the beautiful place, the beautiful, everything. And we see it. And I seen it today with the young man, Renell Rains, the Christian guy, the young guy from, I think he's from New York. He's a Hispanic young man from New York, and he's going around what Jesus wants from us. And he's deluding himself about a lot of things. And he's got some, probably a pasture, or one of those people that, we all know were lying to us. And one of those people, one of those authorities, the adult authorities, that all they can give us is is these fantasy fiction things, and they draw them up for us, and they get a wife and everything will be okay. You go to college, everything's going to be okay, but it's all up to you still. And you're going to have to forcefully push through this world. And unless you do that, it's not going to work. And you got to set up some goals, and whether the goals are set in reality or whether the goals are set in this fantasy fiction place, it doesn't really matter until later. And I often think about whether I would have set it, and there's no way to go back on this thing either. I can't go back in time and say, if I would have set my goals in more reasonable steps and more reasonable things, and not put so much validation in a female, and not put so much validation in that Christian living, that the big house that I picked a house that I thought this is the one I was going to live in. It was very cheap, and it was in the inner city, and I said I could stay here and I can live here. But it didn't seem to be good enough for everybody around me. It was never good enough for her family or my family. And it was like, why, you're letting us down so badly. And that's what I talk about when you're never good enough. You can never be good enough. You can never have the biggest house. You can never have the best, prettiest girl. You can never have the the greatest picket fence, and the best car is whatever you did was always well, Bob has a Maserati, and there's always one more step to go in that, and that's hypergamy. It's all based on the hypergamy ladder. There's always a next step. Nothing's ever good enough, and there's always a next step. And these are core human conditions that we often don't want to think about. But in Mgtow, we take the position where we do these introspections in ourselves, and we take a look at what we were thinking. And when I think back on if I would have took that in more graduated steps to better results, we know that we talked about Winninger. Winninger says, we take takes things in small steps, and then at a certain point in that step, you have to figure out whether it's a failure or whether it's a success. And either one of them, if it's success, men do one of two things. We put that away, we keep it over here, but we leave from it and we start doing another step. And whether that step is putting on top of the last thing we did and building more, we keep going. We take that step, and if we fail, knowing when to fail is an essential tool for men. When is this thing a failure? And I see this. This is like Hollywood. Every movie in Hollywood, every person in Hollywood, they're often they're making that crucial decision. Is like we're plunging through the world with through the world towards the core in a big drill ship, and one of those movies, and we have to decide if this thing is going to be a failure. But in Hollywood, they're never a failure. They go through tragedy, and they go through temptation, and they go through pain and suffering, and they always come out victorious at the end. But in real life, the planet that we live on, according to Camus, is it's absurd, and it's just absurd, and it's life and death, and there's no meaning to it. And he says, and where we find meaning is in ourselves, and that's the only place you can find meaning. You make your own meaning, and we put away all these silly things, and I think Camus even, he gave his version of existential flight. You're just fleeing from the things in life that displease you instead of taking them on, and living in a fantasy fiction world. And that's what I see with a lot of these guys, the Bitcoin guy and the Renault Reigns, and they want to be Mgtow so bad, and they want to call what they are, and their search for that existential, their search for that final fictionalism, what they think life is, whatever that particular dream of theirs. And you never know with men what particular dream it is, but it always takes the shape of I'm going to have the best wife in town and be driving around in the best car, and I'm going to have that mansion with them two poles in the front. They go so high you can hardly see the top. It's like woo. And all that stuff's pretty silly, because we've realized in life at a certain point that we're not going to be that guy. I'm never going to be Jeff Bezos or Donald Trump, or I'm never going to be afforded that kind of luck or that kind of assistance in life. And that's just it. Born a poor Irish child, and probably I'm ending up a poor Irish child too. And but existential flight, it's just another way of saying that Disney fantasy fiction land that we were talking about, and it more explains Mgtow. And these are the things we have to do in Mgtow. Let the killing begin. Oh, so what's going on in the chat? I can only see it from the other page. And who are we killing now? Yeah, it's getting tough out there. And I went to the grocery store this morning, and I could do several trips. I have to do several trips because I can only fit like 3 or 4 or 5 items on my bike, and usually it's like a bag of sugar, some meat, whatever vegetable I'm eating for the day, and a can of Pepsi, and whatever I need, some mayonnaise, mustard, and that's it. So I got to do this every single day, and it keeps me on top of my game, and it keeps me moving, and it keeps me healthy. I went up there, and today there was no rice, and I was talking to the one stock boy. He's the stock manager. I shouldn't call him stock boy because that's an insensitive noun. And it's like the stock manager, and he's a nice kid, and he was telling me that company had shut down because of the coronavirus thing. There's a lot of things that I don't know. They say filed bankruptcy. I don't think they shut down. So they're looking for a new distributor of rice. And I thought, is that true? Or is that true? Or are people just hoarding rice? And he said, yeah, people are hoarding rice. They're coming in and taking rice. So I couldn't find the rice I wanted. So that's what I bought today. I was going to make sushi rolls, and I have a sushi maker I bought, and I was going to make some of that peanut butter dip that I so love, and it's some peanut butter dressing in a sushi roll, and I pull it all over it. And I guess that's Vietnamese style. I suppose it's not really a Chinese style, or there's different styles of sushi, which I found out. There's a Samoan sushi and Hawaiian sushi and Vietnamese sushi styles. And it's all just a paste that you put on there. And there's the green hot stuff that makes your nose go on fire. But I was going to do that, and I didn't do it today. But I'll probably do it tomorrow. And but I was up there, and there was no rice, and there was no and people are getting anxious. And my sister calls me, and she's worried, and she's anxious probably, and wondering what her brother Joe, that seems not to want to be around people for some strange reason, is doing, and if he's okay. And I thought it was a lovely gesture. It's always a lovely gesture when family calls and are concerned about you. But in this time, we're all experiencing a little more existential angst, and we'll probably see. We thought that there would be some process here where the blue pill guys, and that's what they're doing. They're like, oh man, here it's going to be a zombie apocalypse, and all the girls, and it's what that Renell Rains was saying. He's like they'll all come back to Jesus, and then they're going to be in the kitchen cooking and pregnant, and and I'll have someone to make my bed. Woo! And he's like, I got my mommy, and that's all they want, is they want a replacement mommy for things they can't do themselves. Most of them will talk about individual, and Bitcoin Mgtow, he talks about individualism and how he's doing it his way. But all he's doing is replacing his mommy that'll make someone to make his bed, and he's been through 2 divorces, and you could see how like a woman wouldn't want to come and we bait and switch too as males. We drop these fantasy fiction things, these final fictionalisms in our head about this perfect world that we live in, and this traditional world that men want, that go back to the 50s. And we lie the same way. We put those masks on the same way, and then we get a woman in our house, and we're like, "Go do the dishes, baby," and you slap her on her butt and say, "I'll meet you in the bed. You're just a penis pocket for me for life." And that's what they really want, is the split V, and they're really not talking about it. And I think that's a moral monster that would do that. A Mgtow, a true Mgtow, we don't want nothing to do. I would never subjugate a woman. I don't want nobody doing my laundry. I don't want no one cooking for me. I don't want no one cleaning my floors or my bathroom for me. I have a specific way I do it. And with those things come a lot of existential angst, because I keep my bikes in my living room. And it's like, yeah, you can't ask someone to clean up after when you're a guy that keeps your bikes in the living room, and then Rick's got his beer can collection over there. I'm just kidding. If Rick listens, he probably doesn't listen, but yeah, we all do these things, and there's a building anxiety out there, and my observations are that the blue pill people are still living in that world, that Disney world, where all the girls are going to come back and they're just going to be able to slap them on their butts, and the girls are going to wear those white aprons and the beautiful sundresses, and they're just going to stand at the door like, "I sure hope he gets home soon because I just love him so much." And she stands there like a yellow dog, just waiting for you at the door, waving to people as they go by with their perfect self. That's June Cleaver, and that's what we all dream of. But that's not reality, and I would never want to put a woman in that position, and I would never want to see a woman diminished into the Stepford wife. So I could have this thing, and the Stepford wife. How the Stepford wives turned out. They were just killer program robots, and that's how they were taking out their enemy, and that explains life a lot. Because after that thing fails, and she wakes up one day and says, "I'm sick of you slapping me on my butt. I want to go to work, and I want my agency, and I want I want those things, and that's what they want." And she's no longer a penis pocket to you, and there's the divorce and the child support, and she'll do her own laundry, and you'll still need, and that's what most immature men that get married 2 or 3 times, you will still need someone to make your bed, because you never learned how. And you never learned how to cook for yourself, and you never learned how to do the dishes, and you never had to grow into a reasonable adult. And that goes her way too, because she never learned how to go out and work. She never learned how to gain agency in this lifetime. And she has a lot of learning to go through too. And it's horrible marriage, and people shouldn't live together for these reasons. Men and women, they shouldn't let children marry, because it puts both of them in this, especially under the sense of traditionalism, because sooner or later that thing's going to wake up, where either or both are going to wake up and go, "Damn, this sucks, and I've never learned to grow up." But I see men in the MRA still fighting for that traditional living, and they want to be fathers. They want to volunteer for that thing. And volunteer for the traditional lifestyle. She'll just get back in the kitchen and start brewing up a feast for your friends and serving it to you. And you got your slave, and then you go off to work, and she's got her slave, and you wonder why. Traditionalism demands traditionalism, and there's suffering on both ends of that thing. And women seem to think that we don't suffer either, and it's something that's pleasurable for us. But in those situations, when we draw up these finalized fictionisms or this existential flight from reality, that's what we get. And it's not that she didn't do that too. She had some ideas about this finalized fictionalism that was in her head. She was going to be the perfect wife, being sitting around at the club and with the girls all day having martinis and talking about how great you are while you're struggling at work and putting it all together because you're the man. Ooh, you're such a man. That's that's some Disney fairy tale. That's some of that. What was that show with the salesmen and everything in it? I can't remember it. And they're living that 1950s fantasy. But all that stuff is a sign of the defective mind, the defective thinking when we flee from reality and we flee from our anxieties, and we don't really fix things in small steps, and we don't take things in small steps, and we don't take things reasonably and rationally as a Mgtow male would. And we put our lives together. You build your house on good bedrock, and it won't move. It never is going to fall away. You build your house on that kind of fictional sand, and it's just going to fall away, and you're going to end up doing it again. At least that's what my father always taught me, and I thought he was right. And when I was a kid, I was just like, I don't know what he means by that. But now I know what it means because I'm older. So it's Friday night, and I didn't make my sushi. I can't remember what I made today. I don't think I can't remember eating, so I don't think I made anything. Oh, I made some hot dogs from this morning for breakfast. It was a chili dog for breakfast. When you're a Mgtow, you can eat chili dogs and whiskey for breakfast if you want. It's like, that's okay. It's a perfectly acceptable diet. And if that's your thing and that makes you a little happy, and Mgtow's now the cure for this existential angst, this existential flight, this finalized fictionalism. How do we cure that? How do we keep men from falling down into that kind of world where their sights are on something that's so bizarre and so crazy, and Jesus is telling them that there's a girl out there that just wants to be abused by you every night, and she'll cook and clean and wash your dishes so you don't have to. And that's what Jesus is telling them. How do we cope with that? How do we, as Mgtows, we develop these resistance against seeing this garbage? We observe it every day around us. We have the fake Mgtows come in, and you all know the fake Mgtows, and they're always pushing the blue pill world on. Look, I have a girl, what was it? The Veganator came in, and he did the same thing that the Mgtow Bitcoin guy is doing, and he had the same thing going, and he said the same things, and we see these same things from them. They become patterns in their thinking, And he was doing the existential flight from reality on a lot of those things. His idea was it was so funny because I had this thought that, it's like you and your buddy, you're looking down at the bowling club down there, and it said singles night bowling league, and you go, ooh, and then this jackass shows up with a girlfriend at singles night and tries to explain to all the singles how insully they are and how he can cure them from their, and it's singles bowling night, and you're like, dude, you and your girlfriend need to just exit. Why would you go into Mgtow with that kind of attitude? Why would you come at us with that? We're just having fun. And that's what it is. And that's where it is bowling night for Mgtow. I'm just out with my bros. I'm having some fun. We're going to do this bowling. It's singles bowling. The girls are over there. And hey, you never know what's going to happen behind a dumpster after a night of of singles bowling, but that's, I take that from the Big Lebowski. You never know what's going to happen after the night of singles bowling. But some jackass always shows up with his girlfriend, telling everybody how lucky he is, flaunting it in their face, and you're all a bunch of incels, and that was his idea. My rugged individualism, as he has to have a girl that'll make his bed and do those things for him that he never really grew up and grew into and can't do for himself. And he's going to tell the rest of the world, the rest of us, and us Mgtows, how we should live our lives. And that we have to give him the room to consider those things in his life, but he gives us no room at all to consider our Mgtow. And that's a pretty rude person. That's a pretty dishonest person. My thought was, why do they even come around here? Why do they even try to convince us of another way? There's really no reason for it. They don't get nothing from it. It's just it's just that we violate their paradigm. Somehow we, in our philosophy, once learning about our philosophy, they must change it because they can't do the flight. They can't do the final fictionalism. They can't do all that stuff around us. There is no Disney princess out there for me. And there's no such thing as no Walt, and every one of them got a gun in the room, and all that stuff can stop at a moment's notice once she wakes up till she doesn't want to be a penis pocket and a slave to you. And that's the way the world is, and that's why we see about a 92% divorce rate. Didn't last long. This thing fell apart in the mid-60s. People started asking questions. Postmodernism came around, and probably the 50s and 40s, and people, and the electric Kool-Aid acid test came around in the late 50s, and people started having existential questions about the traditionalism that they were seeing around. And basically before that, it was Wild West in the 1890s, and we had Civil War, and there were Christians around, but they kept to themselves, and they tried to stay away from the rowdies, and basically, it's a new religion they got, and it fails. So I didn't even notice that I didn't have that right. See that? See how I am? I should put it like a face peeking through the edge, but I won't. So traditionalism has fell apart, and the new thing now is like, ooh, coronavirus. The coronavirus is there's a new paradigm of brewing in this world, and we can all be pirates, and the zombies are going to be walking around soon, and there's going to be war and famine, and the women are just going to be piling themselves, just piles of women at my feet, like just begging for me to let them use my shower. I think that's the silliest thing in the whole world, and the world's not going to change that much, and it's still going to be as absurd as it was the day before. I mean, these guys can tell it to The Rock because The Rock doesn't care. So, in this human condition we have to live in, how does Mgtow do it? How do we just relieve ourselves? We do the introspections that are mandatory to ourselves. We grow up. We start doing our own cooking, our own cleaning. We start doing our own life. We develop our own world in which we put up that's based on reality and the things we like. And these we have our workshops in our garages, and we go out every day like everybody else, but we don't need a significant other to move through life very efficiently. And to complain about a Mgtow is like complaining about the perfect being. I'm not going to be there. We're not going to be those rapists. We're not going to ask the girls to make our beds and do our cleaning. That's an absurd thing. I don't want a slave, and I don't want them making me into a slave. I don't want to have to spend endless hours at work struggling for these things that I made up in my head, so I can keep these things that are precious to me. I'd rather just have a decent neighbor's home. Neighbor's home. We keep it modest and we keep it decent, whatever your living standard is and everything. You're probably doing more okay than you ever did in life if you got the Mgtow. And that's a pretty good thing, and I think that's where everybody should be. At least you got your foot on firm ground, and that's all I really wanted to talk about today. 57 minutes, and I get no viewers anymore because I get no love after my latest rant about how fatherhood is useless and it's a made-up fictional thing that they put in their heads. And that's another thing. What kind of existential flight did they go through to put this idea in men's heads that they are fathers? They're drawing up this idea of him playing with his little son, and that's where it is. It's the idea I'm going to be playing with my son on the baseball field, and the girl's going to be, ooh, Cheryl, Claire, you have such a beautiful man. Look at him, and he's just perfect, and and that gives us joy. Claire's approval. Until we get home and she starts throwing knives at you, and we never talk about those moments. We're not allowed to talk about them as men because other men can't handle it, and it'll lead to nail polish. Grosses me out. It's male nail polish is pretty close. That's what Sid's sudden infant death was all about. Remember in the 70s and the 80s when the SIDS came around, and they started using those big nails, those big gross paste on nails with the nail polish and everything, and the nurses were doing that. But underneath the fingernails, the bacteria collects up, and even as little back as the 70s and 80s, there were none of those sanitation bottles for your hands in the hallways. That happened in the late 80s, and where every maintenance had to put those things up, and that was all because of SIDS. And the girls were taking and feeding the babies, and they were wiping food from their mouth and putting it in the in the little babies' mouths and the bacteria from under their nails. And mothers were doing that with those big 80s and 70s nails that they used to, the acrylic ones that collect bacteria under there, and essentially killing the babies. And no one could figure out what it was. It was removed from the internet. Because as soon as they found out, it was just like this pandemic. We were having SIDS. There's something going on, and just killing all the babies. And then they just found out that it was just the females and the nurses with those big, long, polished nails, and they're collecting bacteria under that and shoving it in the baby's mouth. Causing heart palpitations and causing the baby to perish. Hello, Brissy boy. How are you today? We were just talking about existential flight. If you missed it, and same thing as Adler's finalized fiction. It's the same thing as the Disney dreams that most men have about this world and that beautiful house and that beautiful wife and that beautiful car. And it's like them are all dreams that we put in our head. And what we should replace them with is honest to goodness goals. And it's good to have goals in your life, obtainable goals. Goals have to be obtainable. And otherwise, they're flights of fancy. They're grandiose, we'd call them. A goal should be a little step forward, and you keep stepping forward until you're at a desired point in your life. And whatever desired point that is, I've been here for 15 years now, and I rather enjoyed it. As a Mgtow, I rather enjoy it, and that's all we do. And we throw away all those core human conditions that would cause us, angst, and we work on a problem little at a time, whatever I need to do, and that's it. And that's what I did when I stepped off that bus in the early 80s after the Army. And 1981, the end of 1981, and I looked out over this world, and man, that's a thing. You're like, what am I going to do? I'm an adult now. I have to go do this. And no one ever showed me how to do it. And I did the same as everybody else did. Wanted to get a little girl and treat her badly and use her as a penis pocket and make her do my dishes. And she was going to be a traditional one. She was going to have a Christian belief. Thought the same thing as all these other guys thought and think. And all that ends. Then you have to grow up just the same. And that's it. And about that time, I wished I would have had some Mgtow, and I wish I would have did things a proper way. I look back and I think, man, what could I have changed? Would I have made a different decision? Would I have? I don't know. Them are questions of the past, and we can't redo it, and we can't make it up. And I can't figure out how to make a time machine. Or else I would go back and do it right this time. She would go, "You want to get married?" And I'd go, whoa, slow down there, little lassie. My head would explode if I knew what I knew now. Oh, but hey, we have to live with that. Hopefully we reach out to a couple guys that'll get it and not make the same mistakes, and they'll develop in their lives a lot better with all that angst, without all that emotion, without all that garbage in their head, and the existential flight that causes us to divert from reality. And it's always born, it's born from a mild mild things comparatively to, from the world we live in today. It's always born of these mild things. This I'm so lonely, or I'm so I'm so anxious because I need something to do. Men divert from reality all the time, and those entertainment things. And Camus talked a lot about the entertainment, and he talked about the entertainment in the what book was that? The Plague, and he talked about entertainment and the absurdity, and he pretty much created the theater of the absurd, and how we flight from that. And it's kind of casual, and it's kind of small, and it's kind of, we just assume if we change and manipulate one thing and it makes us feel better, we change and manipulate another thing and it makes us feel better, we manipulate another reality and it makes us feel better. And we can do that in very descriptive and temporal ways in this world. We just put those things, those solid items, those things in front of us, and we say, oh man, I won. I got a whole garage full of things that I won. I wanted at one point in my life, and then I figured out, man, all those things, and all those things I wanted to do and did, and I never really found it. And all I really wanted was to pedal my bicycle with the motor on it and ride around and smile at, wave at people, because there's nothing that turns me on like that in the world. And it was so simple, and it's something that I always did. And it was just something that got lost in the patterns of self-existence that I needed to make. And I illogically separated from reality. And the first thing that went was my bike. And I had a nice one at one point. I had a Diamondback, I think it was. And that's a nice bike. Even then, it was an aluminum bike that I'd bought from some crackhead. I was probably stolen, and I think I knew that. It was probably stolen from somewhere, but I liked it. Jesus, crackheads! You guys, I don't know if you guys got to deal with them anymore. I hope that's a thing of the past too. Crackheads. But we come up with these inaccurate ways of how to change our lives. And we're just talking about we're speaking of our anxieties or our moods, and then we put this existential flight in with them, and along with a little finalized fictionalism, along with a dream of a Disney world, and we lose ourselves in that, and we flee from fiction. And what Stephen Batchelor says, most of all, we lose ourselves. And then in that, it was the biggest question of me coming into Mgtow, who I was. And that's why I started looking deep, because I lost myself in this world. And I didn't want to be one of those guys that died. And, I never really got to know myself. Now I do know myself. I know exactly what I'm about and who I am. And I've taken all those looks, deep looks down into my darkness and my ego and all that. And I think I came out pretty good after all this thing. I wish I was the man I am now back then. I wish someone could have taught me that. And it's an easy process. It was such an easy process. The Mgtow process, just the Mgtow philosophy, just observe what's bothering you and take everything off the table and start putting on things that you like and you think are okay. And it was so easy. But I've been going on for 48 minutes, and I know nobody's going to watch this because I ain't even going to show up. My last 4 videos didn't even show up, or they won't even put me on any kind of list. I didn't even show up on the Mgtow Today page, and that's like, wow. I'm so censored. And I did get a copyright strike from a film that I had bought in about 4 years ago, and then a new company bought that film, so they gave me a copyright strike because I had bought it from the old company. Christ. But that's okay. I really don't. It really doesn't bother me. I've been thinking about starting a new channel and just dumping everything, and but that's all for today. And I hope you're all having a great day. I think I'm going to get out there one more time and do one more. I like to ride around. I got one flashing light on the back of my bike, and I got my light on the front of my bike, and I like riding around and at night. And I was promising myself I was going to wear this mask at night. It was like, and I just wanted to see how I creep people out with it and see the reaction that they have. Just stand at the top of the street with the mask on my bike and just look at people. I thought that would be funny. Probably get shot, but that's what I'm gonna go do. Try to ride around and wave to people. And it's Friday night. I'm sure there's some teenagers out there doing something they probably shouldn't be doing, and I want to just look at it and see it. And it's like, wow, look at the teenagers. look at the youngsters. They're probably all up at the really fun sitting there. You go up to the convenience store and I get a Pepsi, and I just pull my bike up and I just sit there and watch them, because there's some guys getting hit, and there's not a girl that's happy. and every guy's walking behind his wife, and it's like, ooh, this Mgtow bench, this observations I'm making are just precious. They're precious. So with that, I think I'm just gonna bug out and just hope you're having a great day. I just hope you're all having a great day. I'm having a great day. I'm gonna go for another bike ride, and that's the thing that makes me the happiest in the whole world. So how bad of a day can it be? Don't let the rest of the world bother you. There's still food up there. Everything's gonna pull back together as soon as the people stop being crazy. And we've seen this before, and it'll be around again. Like I said, there's SIDS and SARS, and there was flus and viruses or something that should be typically understood by people, by this time. But hey, they're all going to freak out, and just try to take care of yourself during that, and don't get in the way of the unreasonable people, because they'll hurt you. And we'll watch this thing from the Mgtow bench, because it's pretty interesting, and human nature is always interesting. It's always interesting. And that's what I'm going to go do. So thanks a lot for coming around. Like I always say, it's you guys that make Mgtow worth it. You're needed. And just thanks a lot for being Mgtows. You guys have a great day.